Some of you have love. Some of you have the gift of long suffering. Whatever it is, whatever your gift is, what are you going to do with what you have?
Denzel Washington, a name that has defined greatness for over 4 decades. From his commanding presence on screen to the wisdom in his words, he has inspired generations. But now at 70, what's happening to Denzel Washington is leaving fans heartbroken. He was once Hollywood's unshakable force, strong, confident, and unstoppable. Every role he played carried purpose. Every word he spoke carried truth. Yet behind the awards, the fame, and the applause, there lies a man who has faced deep personal battles, ones the cameras rarely captured. Those who followed his journey know he's always stood tall through loss, heartbreak, and spiritual struggle. But as time has passed, even Denzel's strength has been tested. The years of pressure, the loss of friends and mentors, and the weight of fame have taken their toll. Today, fans notice a quieter, more reflective Denzel. His recent public appearances reveal a man who's grown more introspective, his words slower, his eyes heavier with the wisdom and weariness of a life fully lived. It's a story of triumph and pain, of faith and endurance. A man who gave everything to his craft, yet may have lost more than anyone ever knew. This is the untold truth about Denzel Washington, the struggles behind the success, the heartbreak behind the legend, and the quiet battle of a man who's given the world so much, yet carries a weight few could ever bear. Long before the world knew his name, Denzel Washington was just a young man from Mount Vernon, New York, a child of discipline, faith, and big dreams. Born to a Pentecostal minister father and a beauty salon owner mother, Denzel grew up surrounded by love, structure, and expectation. His parents taught him early that faith would be his compass, and that no dream was too far if he was willing to work for it. But life wasn't always easy. When Denzel was just 14, his parents separated, and that moment changed everything. The stability he once knew was shaken. Yet in that chaos, something powerful began to grow inside him. A quiet fire, a desire to prove himself not through rebellion, but through excellence. He attended Fordham University, unsure of his path at first. It wasn't until he stumbled into acting that he discovered what he was born to do. The stage became his sanctuary, a place where he could express every emotion, every wound, every truth. His teachers noticed immediately. Denzel didn't just act, he became. In the late 1970s, he started appearing in small television roles. Then came his breakthrough as Dr. Philip Chandler on St. Elsewhere. Week after week, America watched him transform, a young black actor commanding respect, intelligence, and power in a world that rarely offered such roles. Hollywood soon took notice. By the mid-1980s, Denzel was becoming a force no one could ignore. His portrayal of Private Silas Tripp in Glory earned him his first Oscar, a moment that marked not just victory, but validation. He wasn't just a good actor. He was one of the best of his generation, and yet, even as the fame grew, Denzel remained grounded. He credited every success to his faith and his family. While others in Hollywood chased fame, Denzel sought purpose. "I'd rather fail at something that matters," he once said, "than succeed at something that doesn't." Through the 90s and 2000s, he gave the world unforgettable performances. Malcolm X, The Hurricane, Training Day, Remember the Titans. Every role was more than entertainment. It was a statement. He portrayed strength, morality, conflict, and humanity in ways that touched millions. Behind the camera, though he remained a quiet man, deeply private, protective of his family and wary of the temptations that fame could bring, while many around him crumbled under the weight of success, Denzel's faith became his armor. Still, the higher he climbed, the more isolated he became. Fame can be a lonely mountain. Friends faded, expectations grew, and every word he spoke was judged by millions. Yet through it all, he never lost his sense of who he was. Denzel Washington's rise wasn't just a story of talent. It was a story of discipline, character, and unwavering belief. But behind that strength, something was slowly beginning to change. The fame, the pressure, the endless demands, they were starting to take their toll. And as the years went on, even the strongest man in Hollywood would find himself facing battles that no one could see. For most of his life, Denzel Washington seemed unshakable, the man who could do no wrong. His presence was powerful, his words inspiring, his image flawless. To the public, he was the symbol of strength and grace. But behind the fame, behind the camera flashes and red carpets, Denzel carried battles that only those closest to him truly understood. The weight of being perfect in Hollywood is a heavy one. For years, Denzel was expected to be a role model, not just an actor. Every move he made was watched, every word dissected. He was held to a standard few could ever meet. While his contemporaries were allowed to make mistakes, Denzel's image was expected to remain untouchable. That pressure built up over time, quietly, invisibly. He often spoke about how fame can distort reality, how people stop seeing you and start seeing only what they want to believe. "It's a strange thing," he once said. "You can be surrounded by thousands of people and still feel completely alone." That loneliness followed him. Even during his greatest triumphs, there were rumors, harsh headlines, and endless speculation about his personal life. Hollywood thrives on tearing down its heroes, and Denzel was no exception. The whispers hurt, not because they were always true, but because they reminded him of how fragile reputation could be. Through it all, he kept his silence, never responding, never lashing out. His faith told him to rise above the noise, even when it cut deep. And then there were the losses, friends, mentors, and loved ones who shaped his journey but didn't live to see how far he'd come. The deaths of figures like Chadwick Boseman, Whitney Houston, and Sidney Poitier left visible marks on him. Denzel often referred to them as brothers and sisters in the struggle. Their passings reminded him of how short life truly is, and how easily the lights of greatness can fade. But his deepest challenge wasn't fame, it was balance. The struggle to be a great actor and a present husband, a loving father, a faithful man. His work demanded everything: time, energy, emotion, and it often left little for the ones who mattered most. Denzel has admitted to moments of doubt, moments when he wondered if the price of success was too high. As years passed, his priorities shifted. Awards began to matter less. He spoke more about faith, family, and legacy than fame or fortune. In interviews, you could hear the weariness in his tone, not defeat, but reflection. He'd seen what the industry could do to people. He'd seen talent destroyed by ego, families broken by fame, and souls lost chasing something they could never keep. Denzel's tragedy isn't that he failed, it's that he succeeded beyond imagination, yet still felt the emptiness that success couldn't fill. Behind the confident smile was a man searching for peace in a world that never stops demanding more. He once said, "You'll never see a U-Haul behind a hearse." It was his way of reminding the world, and himself, that none of this lasts. Fame fades, trophies gather dust, but the soul, that's eternal. And though the world still celebrates Denzel Washington the legend, the man behind that name has been quietly fighting to hold on to what truly matters. Every great man reaches a point where life forces him to slow down, to look back at the path behind and the cost it took to walk it. For Denzel Washington, that moment came quietly, through years of reflection, loss, and rediscovery. He had always been a man of faith, but as he grew older, that faith became more than a belief. It became his anchor. In the stillness of age, Denzel began to talk less about Hollywood and more about God. He told young actors to stay prayed up, to put God first, and to remember that their gifts were not theirs alone. It was his way of passing on what he'd learned through pain, that fame can lift you high, but only faith can keep you standing. But his spiritual journey was not born from comfort. It was shaped through heartbreak. Over the years, Denzel faced the loss of friends, colleagues, and personal mentors, people who had walked beside him during the rise. Each loss hit harder than the last. When Chadwick Boseman passed away, Denzel's reaction was quiet, solemn. Few knew that he had secretly paid for Boseman's acting studies years before. To Denzel, Chadwick's death wasn't just a tragedy. It was a reminder of how fragile greatness can be. He began spending less time chasing roles and more time mentoring others. He'd tell young artists, "Don't confuse movement with progress. You can run in place all day and not get anywhere." Those words carried the wisdom of a man who'd seen both sides of success, the glory and the grief. at home. He found his greatest strength, his wife, Pauletta. Married for over 40 years, their bond had been tested but never broken. Through every rumor, every headline, every demanding season of fame, she stood by him. Denzel often said she was the true hero of his story, the foundation that kept him from collapsing under the pressure. "I wouldn't be here without her," he once admitted, his voice filled with gratitude and humility. Still, the passing years brought a new awareness. His body grew tired, his eyes softer, his words slower. He began to talk about legacy, about what he'd leave behind when the lights finally dimmed. "The most important thing," he said, "is to impact someone's life, not through fame, but through love." And perhaps that was the true turning point, when Denzel realized that his greatest role wasn't Malcolm X or Alonzo Harris. It was being a man of purpose. The awards on his shelf could never compare to the satisfaction of seeing a life changed because of something he said or did. But even with all this wisdom, a quiet sadness lingered. The kind that comes from knowing time is moving faster than it used to. He'd lost many along the way, and he knew his own journey was entering its final act. Yet even in that awareness, Denzel Washington chose peace. He chose to keep giving, to keep inspiring, to keep walking in faith even when the world wanted more of his fame. He once said, "Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship." Those words now carry the weight of experience, a message not just for others, but for himself. Because behind the strong voice and commanding presence stands a man who has endured, forgiven, and kept his faith, no matter how heavy the burden became. At 70, Denzel Washington stands as one of the last true icons of Hollywood, a man whose life has been built not just on talent, but on conviction, faith, and resilience. Yet when you look past the awards, the speeches, and the applause, you see something deeper, a man at peace, yet touched by sorrow, carrying the quiet weight of a life fully lived. Gone are the days when he chased the spotlight. These days, Denzel prefers the quiet moments. Mornings spent reading scripture, evenings spent with family, and the rare joy of silence. For someone who once lived surrounded by cameras and chaos, peace has become his greatest reward. But that peace was not easily earned. He's spoken before about the emptiness that comes after success, how fame can give you everything and still leave you hollow. "You pray for rain," he once said, "but you gotta deal with the mud too." Those words reveal a man who has seen both sides of life, the beauty and the burden. Fans notice the change in him now. The spark in his eyes remains, but there's a softness there, a quiet understanding that time is precious, that life's truest value isn't found in fame or fortune, but in faith and family. When he appears in interviews, his words are slower, measured, filled with gratitude. The power of youth has been replaced by the wisdom of survival. Still, there is sadness in his story. The world sees Denzel as unbreakable, yet few realize how much he's endured behind the curtain. The loss of loved ones, the fading of lifelong friends, the constant reminder that nothing in this world lasts forever. All of it has shaped him into the reflective man he is today. There are days when he looks back, not in regret, but in wonder, at how far he's come. From a young boy in Mount Vernon to one of the most respected men in film history. But even in that success, Denzel never forgot the truth his mother taught him. Man gives the award, but God gives the reward. Perhaps that's what sets him apart. In a world obsessed with fame, Denzel never allowed it to own him. He knew from the beginning that one day the applause would fade and the cameras would turn elsewhere. That's why he built something that would outlast it all: integrity. Now, as he steps further away from the public eye, fans can't help but feel the heartbreak. The thought of losing such a presence, such a voice, feels unbearable. But Denzel's quiet withdrawal isn't an ending. It's a reflection. He has given everything, and now he chooses to live the rest of his days in peace. In the end, the tragedy of Denzel Washington isn't that his light is fading. It's that the world rarely sees the man behind the legend. The man who sacrificed, who prayed, who endured, and who never lost sight of his purpose. And maybe that's his final gift to us. The reminder that true greatness isn't about how loudly the world praises you, but how deeply your life touches others. Denzel Washington's story is not just about Hollywood. It's about faith, endurance, and grace under pressure. A man who rose, who suffered, who inspired, and who, even in heartbreak, continues to shine with the quiet strength of a soul that never gave up.